Here's a model of the project, and it's probably as close as we can get to the diagram of the project. The train station is here. The museum is here. The archaeological park is both here on this side of the crack open and this side where these squares represent the future digging. We cannot build on those sites until they've been cleared of boats or other artifacts from earlier prehistoric periods. This is the site of what we will call the transit building, which is the commercial building that is paired with the railroad, and the entrances into the station are these passages here and here, which go over a cut in the ground which represents the archaeological project. Next, please. So we have the overlay of the plan grid on the site. I'll talk about these other vectors later. This is an old 19th century intact community that we decided to leave as an artifact. We put it on a plinth and suggested that it remain somewhat intact. We created an extension of that context and took it into a ferry terminal, which is the main terminal from the other side, so that boats could come in here and take people up either to the shopping, housing, or the railroad terminal to take them to Paris, London, and beyond. So with that energy here, we decided to play against that condition another radial condition with a central vector over here, which would be the archaeological park and garden, playing against the archaeological housing, let's say, project. And so you have these vectors that come off of this central point here and radiate out into one of the quadrants down below, and they turn, which is a new wrinkle to me, that instead of the same energy, they move into the archaeological excavation site above, creating a gridded matrix that is very different than the scale of either the existing community or the gridded matrix of the structural system of the existing station, which then is replicated in the building that we are talking about. Next. And you begin to see the organization of circulation running across the pedestrian axis, connecting to the structural system and circulation of the station, the circulation through the transit building, and through the museum. We needed a way for moving through the archaeological park to the archaeological site through the building without interrupting museum functions. So there is basically the diagram of the project, because we only are allowed to have a 2- or 3-story building, so it basically has no vertical function. Next, please. Now, I want to go back to Foursquare parties and the energy, how we were able to justify to ourselves. The Mughal garden from the Taj Mahal is a Foursquare diagram, as you can see. and it was one that moved from India both eastward and westward, this time westward, and became a function of many of the Turkish formal gardens. Clearly in the west, we have the Villa Rotunda, which is also sometimes thought of as 9 squares. I like to think of it as a 4-square project extending out from a central rotunda or point. Next, please. What you get then is in modern architecture, in both modern painting and modern architecture, the diffusion, the breaking up of the 4-square project into a series of lines. Here we have Mies van der Rohe's brick country house. These are all ways of thinking through the work that we were doing, or maybe justifying what we had already intuited from what we wanted to do. Theo van Doesburg's Russian Dancer became a very important thing because we realized that dance was something that would animate something of 4-square. So we use this as a reference. Next. And of course, we went back to the quadrille, which is 8 horses, 4 squares in a series of movements. And here are the possible series of movements of a 4-square cotillion formation as a diagram. And these are the kind of things that animate the possibilities of a static 4-square diagram into something other. Next. And this is a drawing that I made, which was important to me. What's interesting is there was no building at the time. As you can see, there's only the wall. Here's a wall of one wall. Here's another wall up here. And if you look at the garden, what you find is there's a building, the transit building, the station, the garden, but the building over here is missing. I hadn't realized it until some time ago when somebody pointed out when did the building come in, and obviously, clearly, it didn't matter when the building came in because the diagram was already set up. And for me, that what is important in terms of the process of thinking about this project was the capacity for the diagrams of the quadrants to move out of their quadrants into something else. For example, this context to move into an arc, and this context of the arcs here to move into a gridded structure up here, which continue the arcs. So something experimenting with some differences from previous projects that we did. But as you can see, none of it really depends upon the computer, depends upon one's capacity to draw and imagine the conditions of drawing. And of course, the accidents of drawing. This is another wall. So we have 1 wall, 2 walls, and 3 walls, all articulated in a very different way as part of the archaeology of the site. Next, please. And then you can see this is a traditional way of dealing with the context over here. And what we did was take the traditional axes that exist in the site. This is the traditional axes. And through the imposition of the arced circles radiating out from the central point here, made a grid which was not merely the traditional contextual grid, but contacted this arbitrary radial grid. As you can see here, the radial grid here intersecting with this grid, the 3 cardinal points along the decumanus, giving you the radial diagram, which with the tipped square, the four-square diagram. Next, please. And then we placed that diagram and overlaid it onto the original context of walls that were in the site. And you can see that each of the 3 and 4 walls maintain themselves. In fact, we're unable to touch them, as it turns out. We have to stay within 5 or 8 meters distance to actually work on the project. Next, please. And there is the concourse level as we did it in the competition. You can see a lot of information dealt with this irregular grid. And of course, one of the things that we did was to borrow the structural grid from the Hagia Sophia, which has this particular irregularity of, where is the thing? A, B, A, B, C, A, B. There is this disruption, a very interesting disruption in the grid of the Hagia Sophia, which we noticed and placed it as the animating grid onto the site. Next, please. And this is a study model that's in our office now where we have the railroad station, the transit building, which is 50,000 square meters, the 80,000 square meter archaeology museum, and the archaeological park and garden, as you can see, and additional context buildings that we provide for commercial or residential on the site, which is one of the things which attracted the mayor most about our project, is it included the possibility of commercial development, which then would pay for much of this other development. That is, giving the land, a public land, to commercial use, allowing us to make this kind of trade between public and private space. Next, please. This is a section through the transit point as it was developed. This is the major railroad station that you see over here. And this is the Intercontinental that goes from London, Paris, all the way to, I suppose, Vladivostok. This is a suburban rail line. It's a new station. And this is a light rail system. We show it as a heavy rail, but it's actually a light rail system. So the section is very difficult to organize in a sense that we have a platform level down here, a platform level here, and a platform level here, which have to be taken care of. So we have platform, concourse, and plaza level, all of which are incorporated into a very deep section, which gives you very little elevation. And we placed over this section, to give it some sort of unity, a pergola-like structure that again came from patterns of Mughal interface of decoration, let's say, from Turkish carpets, rugs, and mosaics, which we integrated into a pattern that you cannot read back to the original, something that we play with a lot, both not only in the roof structure but also in the garden structure. Next, please. And here you see an exploded axonometric, which has the platform level, car parking in 3 levels over here, parking level 3, 2, and then you have the concourse level, and above the concourse level you have the plaza level and the retail level, which is several stories of retail. I guess we have now 2 or 3 stories of retail. All of it was prohibited from anything beyond 2 or 3. I think it's 12 meters. We're up to 14 or 16 meters as far as zoning is concerned, because they want to preserve the skyline of the mosques and the minarets and those. So therefore, we had to go to a low, as it were, a singular building that obeyed along the lines of the existing sea walls that are very important to the archaeological structure. Next, please. And there's the final model that we made. It shows the garden lit and the buildings, and clearly what's the building look like? Well, it doesn't look like anything because it's 2 stories tall and it's about at least 300 meters long. So if it's 18 meters high and 300 meters long, you ain't got much of a facade. That's why you could call it a mat building as opposed to a slab building. It's not much of a slab and it's not much of a mat, so it's some sort of in-between building. Next, please. And here's a view from the south. The highway we depressed so that it ran underneath the platform. This is a major north-south car axis, and this is the pedestrian axis. Next, please. A rendering from the north looking south to our building, to the this is where the future archaeological digs are, and these are things that are supposedly underneath the ground that have to be excavated, and we've used the whole idea of excavation, not artificial excavation as some of our projects, but real excavation to let's say, be part of the architectural idea of the site. Next, please. Here is another view of the model looking from the east. Here is the JFK highway, goes underground here and comes out over there, and our building with the commercial developments there. Next, please. Next. No good? No more? Okay. Don't fall asleep. No. Oh, you're reading. Next, please. Next. This is a rendering, a present rendering of the project, which we just did for the site study, which we gave to the mayor. This ends the work. This was required of us. And you can see some differentiation in the building mass. We're starting to give the building some sort of 3-dimensional energy coming out of the differentiation of the grids, and you begin to see how one could develop from the competition to this project. Next. And this is a view of the garden as it exists today, and the Archaeological Museum, the transit building, the railroad station here, and the development, the site development, which, as I said, is the second phase of our preliminary work. We're now up until Christmas time working on the building per se. We've done nothing other than some slight volumetric adjustments to that. We'll leave that on. That's the end. One of the byproducts of doing projects like this is that this is the one, yeah. A gallery in Venice, which shows projects of interest as collateral, what are called collateral projects to the Venice Biennale, the Architectural Biennale. A gallery which showed Ai Weiwei's recent project at the Art Biennale last summer, has asked us, because of the connection between Venice as a port and Constantinople as a port, and the archaeology of Venice and the archaeology of Istanbul, and the relationship between Constantinople, Istanbul, and Venice, to exhibit as a collateral exhibition this project in Venice this summer. Right now we're in negotiations to do that. What they would like us to do not only is to show this project, but show a diagrammatic relationship or a conceptual relationship between the idea of the harbor in Venice and the idea of the harbor in Istanbul, and that is overlaying both as an archaeological artifact. And they've given us a space of, in the Arsenale, of about 1,000 square meters, which is huge, as a matter of fact, installation. We're still thinking whether we really want to do that or not, and we're also thinking where are we going to get the money for, which would be approximately 250,000 euros to make that installation. I don't know if those kinds of things are available, but the world of installation and the world of exhibition is also part of the project of being a teacher, of writing, of thinking about projects like this. And so it's always very gratifying to realize not only are we doing something which may get built, and it looks like, if the whole idea is political, if the mayor whose project this is keeps his nose clean until March and gets elected, we've been told that we will go into the next phase, which will be building. And of course, what we have to make sure that you understand is that the first phase of building would be the 60,000 square meter transit building, because the city doesn't own the other site yet. And of course, they clearly can take it as anything can happen in Turkey by eminent domain. So we assume that within the next 3 to 5 years, God willing, we'll be able to have a realized building in Istanbul. But as I said, there are all these collateral effects of doing things, one of which is that we're actually working from a competition to a real project. And I can tell you that most of the projects that we get are from competitions, but we also have to lose competitions. And had I had the time, I could show you a competition that we also just did in Taiwan, which we lost to Sana'a. we knew we were going to lose to Sanaa, she did a terrible project. Our project was better, but we lost. But what I like doing is projects. So it's a very important for us to keep moving in that sort of direction. But I appreciate your being here, and thank you, and we'll have questions if there's time. Thank you very much. I'm after 2 days, I'm just about out of gas. I got to tell you, and since I don't drink anymore, I don't know what to do for a restorative. Pop a pill or something like this. One of you guys will have something for me. Anyway, are there any questions or comments? Because this is a learning experience, supposedly.
Architecture cannot make anything better, it can only make itself better.
That's what I said.
And you also said that architecture is a tool of culture.
Right.
Like so, does that mean that culture itself cannot make anything better? And we are all, it is evident that societies that have a higher lifestyle standards and better, how should I say, better quality of life, have also bigger, better cultural awareness and a better education. So one could argue that actually culture and education are a product of a high society standard. But also when you have a culture that is high, you need to have, for that kind of culture, the culture that we are talking about is a culture of educated people. And how can you have a high standard if you don't have educated people? So my question is, if you upgrade the culture and you upgrade the knowledge, then you upgrade the society. So if an architecture is a tool of culture, if you upgrade the architecture, if you have a better architecture, how is it possible that it cannot affect the society?
It clearly has an effect. Look, I believe in reading. I don't see how you can enjoy life, reality, without reading about reality. I believe reading is a great enhancement to walking down the street. I don't believe in cell phones and Kindle or anything like that. I love books, paper, etc. So I believe that culture is important. I read to my students. I assign reading to the students. So reading is part of culture, as architecture is part of culture. I also happen to have 4 children with my wife. Neither of them, 4 of them, never read, right? So it doesn't matter what they've been educated, etc. They have no capacity to read. They have no capacity to really understand architecture, etc. But they have other cultural, one's a filmmaker, one's a lawyer, etc. So there are many different aspects of culture. Of course, you live here in Belgrade, or you go to school here. You're not in, a minor city. You're in a major city. You're supposed to be here because the cultural opportunities to go to the film, to go to opera, to go to hear lectures like this are not available in Pristina, let's say. Where I was invited, I said, no, I'm not going to Pristina. What do I need to go there? So I got to choose. I come to Belgrade. I've never been here, but to me, this is a cultural experience. I hope one person walks out of here and says, I get it. I understand what that guy was talking about. That's the purpose. I don't believe in education. I believe in knowledge. And I don't think this is about education. It's about exposing you to the possibilities of thinking, of knowledge, of how architecture can, in itself, be a part of the cultural apparatus. Just like how is going to a concert going to help anybody? How is reading a book going to help anybody? I think it's enormous value, or going to a museum, or having a good meal. There are these values. That's why I live in New York City. I can't live in Austin, Texas. I cannot live in Atlanta, Georgia. I can't even live in the city of the North in Cambridge, Massachusetts, because, I have an aversion to its, what I would call provinciality, let's say. I happen to like New Haven, which is even more provincial, but it's closer to New York. I get to New York in an hour and a half. That's great. Takes me 4 hours to get to Cambridge or to New York. So I'm New York centric, right? I grew up in a very poor place in New Jersey, the Rodney Dangerfield of all states in the United States, because it's close to New York but so far away. So I grew up with an inferiority complex about living in New Jersey. I believe in culture. There ain't no culture in New Jersey, okay? None. And so I go to the big city. I live in the big city. My kids grew up in the big city. None of them have inferiority complexes, because once you live in New York, you look down at the rest of the world. Growing up with an inferiority complex, I didn't want that to happen to my kids. I raised them in New York. They're street smart. They know how to deal with the street, etc. I imagine growing up in Belgrade has similar characteristics to New York, that there may not be much culture in Pristina. I'm not sure. I don't want to run down Pristina because I haven't been there, but it seems to me like New Jersey a bit. So architecture is only part of the game, all right? It's not everything. You've got to be able to do architecture. You've got to read. You've got to travel. You've got to open yourself to education. I think it's very important to be, but just because you come to university and get a degree, you could end up as a tradesperson. It's an individual passion to do what I do, all right? And what I hope some people in this audience, some of my colleagues, I know that's why they're here. They have that passion for architecture. I don't think any of them believe that architecture makes things better. If anything, architecture makes things worse, right? And that's what's good, because then you realize what needs to be done, right? Architecture costs more money than building. And in fact, a young woman asked me outside, what's the moral value of architecture today? And I said, maybe nothing, because I'm not certain how much the culture of today needs architecture, because she said today. But I know culture needs architecture. I don't know if the culture of today needs architecture. That would be up to all of you to decide. Evidently, it's been very important for Istanbul to have an international competition. I think it would be great for Belgrade to have an international competition for that stadium that I was at today. That would be a really great project. I've already done a stadium, so I have a feeling I could come back and do something I really liked. This conference, to have this in Belgrade like it happened last year with Jacques Derrida, I think is enormous value to bring 18 people here who represent different points of view, who are all in their own way teachers and practitioners and editors and architects and thinkers, and opening up a range of people to this audience, and for them to be open to your audience. That kind of interchange is important. It only happened because we're in Belgrade, right? Not Pristina. You couldn't have gotten us to come to Pristina, and maybe not to Zagreb either. I don't know. We don't travel very far or very well. This is about the extent of traveling out, right? Everybody said, why are you going to Belgrade, you know? I told my students I'm going to Belgrade. And of course, they look at you like, you know, what did you lose there? I've been really wonderfully surprised. I've had a wonderful stay. The conference has been stunningly organized and well received. Being in the city, being able to understand what the city's like, knowing the history of this place, and you know, seeing the rivers, the fortress, the main church, has been an experience. I now know what a southern Slavic city is like, having been in some northern Slavic cities. So it's interesting to have that experience. That's what I call culture. And if you learned anything today, it's architecture is a difficult discipline. Architecture requires a lot of energy and time. It ain't easy. If you don't feel the passion, go into hedge funds because it's a lot easier to make money. And hedge funds is another culture, and it's another way of being in life. I can't do anything but what I do. Tomorrow, I'm leaving on an airplane. The next day, I'm going to be teaching all day in New Haven. I love teaching. I'll be back in my office on Friday working on this project. I'm lucky. I have a great wife. I have wonderful kids. What the hell else do I want? So I can tell you anything. Architecture is good? Yeah, if you want to hear that. I don't think architecture is good. I think architecture in itself. What do I do architecture for? For architecture. Why am I interested in architecture? Because I think it's a necessary part of culture. Does being a necessary part of culture make it good? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But all I do know, and I'm very single-minded about it, is I'm an architect. I have a certain expertise. I can dance circles around anybody in this room when it comes to knowledge of architecture, even the young cats that are here. We could play any of those games that one wanted to, but I don't need to do that tonight. But it ain't gonna make the world better. And the quicker you understand that, the quicker you might become an architect. Because if you're interested in making the world better, be a sociologist, be an anthropologist, be a psychologist, be a medical doctor, be all those things that help, because architecture ain't sure it helps. And if I could, I would love to be a filmmaker, but I don't know the first thing about making a film. Would I love to be able to write? Yeah, I'm a terrible writer. I can't sing because I'm tone deaf, right? I can't dance. I can't do any of those other things, but I know damn well that I can do architecture, and I can do architecture better than anybody in this room, right? And that makes me feel really good. And that's all that counts. That I feel good tonight, it's great. Thank you for your question. My wife has just given me the signal to get off the stage, and so I'm going to do that. Thanks. And if you ever want to come to New York and see the office, my guest, I can't give you a pizza in New York, but if you come to New Haven, you can have a pizza. But thanks again to everybody for coming, and also my colleagues. Mario, you stay awake? He was sleeping? He slept for half an hour? out for half an hour, she said. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.